Robert Plank Show, episode 167, Social Entrepreneurship, Business with a Purpose that Creates Social Change with Adam Force. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show, where we talk about making money, building an online presence, and so much more. Our guest today is Adam Force, and he's run his own record label, consulted on marketing strategy, design, and user experience, and has been a business professional for over 15 years. So Adam Force is the founder of Change Creator Magazine, and it's the only digital magazine for social entrepreneurship. He also hosts the Change Creator podcast show, where he talks with the world's most successful social entrepreneurs. So, Mr. Adam, how are things today?
Things are great today. We just survived Hurricane Matthew out here in Florida, so we're looking up.
Cool. But sometimes that happens in life, right? Sometimes just something washes over you, and you got to board up the windows or whatever and get through it. And then after the storm's gone, then it looks all pretty, right?
Exactly. Sun comes out, we're good to go.
Awesome. So, what are we talking about today?
Hey, let's talk about, we can talk about marketing, digital magazines, business strategy, wherever you want to take it. I got the startup experience, and I will share everything I've learned along the way.
All right, cool. I'm looking at your website, your changecreatormag.com, and I guess so. Tell me about this. We heard in your bio that you have a lot of these high profile guests and things. So what is that, and how did that come about?
Yes, so the magazine, I always, after a travel experience, like many other entrepreneurs, I've noted, I think, at least 80 entrepreneurs that I've interviewed, 80% of entrepreneurs I interview, they get their ideas or aha moments from travel experience. So a quick tip, make sure you're traveling around a lot, because the best ideas seem to come from real perspective shifts when you're traveling. And we were in Costa Rica, my wife and I, just because we've been living in the cities, New York, Philly, and we just wanted to get away. We went somewhere real remote. Long story short, had my epiphany, and I wanted to be a social entrepreneur. I mean, being out there just really kind of ignited the activist in me. I really connected with how things work together, and just, life itself is very precious. And I was like, you know what, really want to make a difference. I want to protect the environment. I want to do good things. And so social entrepreneurship became really attractive to me, because that is the idea of using entrepreneurial skills. And I love to create. So using those skills to, create social and environmental change. So what better than that? Make a living doing something that has real impact in people's lives. And so I tested all kinds of things, whether I was trying to help water bottle, or I was doing rainforest advocacy and a number of other things. So I even consulted for a legal firm to help people in another category like that. But nothing was really sticking for me. I had an interest in a lot of those things, but finally, I was a big believer in self-development. So I was always listening to podcasts, always reading magazines, and just learning every day to make myself smarter, stronger, and understand business better. So finally, I came across a podcast that was talking about the success they were having with an entrepreneur-focused digital magazine. I was like, digital magazine, that is actually interesting. And their guests were asking for more interviews with social entrepreneurs. And so, of course, the light bulb went off in my mind, saying, I have the expertise in my background for design, user experience, networking, all these things. This I can really wrap my head around. So I decided to take the plunge, and I said, let's do it. Because years ago, let's say 5 years ago, maybe, when I was really just getting into the idea of social entrepreneurship and pursuing myself as a social entrepreneur, there was not a lot of information about it. There was no classes, nothing on the sites you might see today, like Coursera.org and those types of sites, Khan Academy. And today in schools and around, you're seeing more and more of it. But at the time, there was nothing. Came across the book, Making Good, a great book for anybody who wants to be inspired as a social entrepreneur. It's by Billy Parrish, and I forget the co-author's name, but that really inspired me at the time. And so long story short, I started pursuing this magazine, and actually the second issue of the magazine, I had Billy Parrish, whose book I read when I was just getting started, on the cover of the magazine. So that was a big inspiration for me. And so now I want to give people the information they need to learn what it takes to actually make a living and make a difference. I mean, how do you do that? It's not just a linear path. It's not plotted out like being a doctor or a lawyer. So it's very different, and it's not like going to get a corporate position in finance. And I didn't have that information when I was trying to figure it out. But I want to be a vibrant resource that is very trustworthy and credible for people to learn exactly how to do that. So if you do want to have an impact in the world and you want to make a living doing it, this is the resource. And that was my goal.
Awesome. I mean, lots of good stuff there to unpack as we're talking here, Adam. So just to make sure that we're all on the same page, like you mentioned this concept of a social entrepreneur a few times and kind of related it to other things. And so
Hmm.
am I hearing you this right? That so if someone's a social entrepreneur, like there's someone who maybe they have their own businesses, they make their own money, but then they then use that money to make some kind of change in the world. Or I mean, what would you say is a social entrepreneur?
Yeah, so just to give the clarity that you're looking for, a social entrepreneur is someone, it's really the combination of profit and impact. So what that means is if you are building a business with the intention of the results of that business positively shake, it's basically to what do they say, shake up the equilibrium of a system. So it really is not that you're taking your money and using that money for change. It is the act of your business that is creating the change. An example is like Malika Dutt. She was in our last issue, and she was a Skoll Foundation Social Entrepreneur Awardee. And the way she was shaking up the system is they have a lot of human rights violations against women in India. And so that is like a cultural thing that has just, evolved over time. And so she wanted to change that. And that's very systemic, it's deep rooted. And to do that, she started getting creative and using pop culture media to change the minds and perspectives of people. And she worked with like Virgin Records. It's a really amazing story that she has, and you can check out that interview and how she got in touch with Virgin and how they worked together and all that stuff. But even against their direction, she didn't change her passion and her ideas for that video. And long story short, it worked out and it was a big hit. And she's starting to really change the culture of how people think and behave around women in India. So that's the idea there. And then there's obviously other things on different scales where people like Jake Orak, who was traveling in Guatemala, he saw that these artisans were creating these amazing handcrafted fabrics, but they were getting pushed out of their livelihoods because of big industry. So he decided that he's going to work directly with those artisans, use their fabric, and then sell them using like bag design, like backpacks, iPad covers, all these different things. So now he's giving them an outlet to make money and keep their culture alive. So there's a number of different ways, and that's the idea though. It's environmental change and social change because of your business.
Okay, and so I mean, would you say that like if you look at like huge businesses, like I mean, with like like Uber and Airbnb and Tesla, would you say that those are all like kind of in? I mean, obviously those are like huge giants, but are those in the same category in the same way that like say like Uber helps people to to make a little bit of extra income or things like that? Would you say that those like bigger companies are also examples of that kind of thing?
I don't, I don't see that the same way. No, I think that's a little bit different. Similarly, like, so yeah, you're talking about someone help creating jobs, right? So the idea of creating jobs is, even Donald Trump has done that, and he's definitely not a social entrepreneur. And you look at someone like, forget his first name, Muhammad Yunus, like he created actual microfinance, a whole new financial system to allow people to start making money and compounding their money that they never could do before. Totally new, totally shook up the financial system and gave people a new way of life to actually earn income and let it compound. So it is different than just creating a business that might offer some jobs and conveniences. So I think that they're not really creating a environmental or real social change that is shaking up the system per se.
Okay, yeah, so that does make sense, and it kind of narrows it down to me, and that clears it up for me because I'm scrolling through your different guests, and yeah, there was like the guy who made the backpack, or like people who do things with clean energy. So it's not enough to just it like the answer or the shortcut is it's not just create jobs, but also like you said, like social and environmental change. Okay, so
Well,
that's making more
yeah,
sense to
yeah.
me.
And there is like an academic definition from Ashoka and Skoll Foundation where, social entrepreneurship is, like I said, it's changing the equilibrium of a system. And that's a big undertaking. And normally that means you're tackling the unknown because obviously it hasn't been done before. You don't know if your idea is going to work. There's no precedence. And so it takes a lot of courage and a lot of persistence in order to do those types of things. And those are great sites. You could see lots of it. A lot of it has to do with human rights and, poverty and all these types of things that are being addressed, the big challenges around the world. So social entrepreneurship has a big role in changing, I guess, the direction and function of how our systems are working so that we have better outputs. And those are again like the academic definition. With Change Creator, we're focused on social entrepreneurship because we think it's really important that people approach their business with that mindset and with those values, right? Because if you're thinking of it from the start, I'm creating this business because I want to address this problem, not because, I want to make this money. That's a very different mindset. And when you approach it with that mindset, your business will have a different outcome. The byproduct becomes financial return, but your focus is impacting lives. So, with our focus being there, that's not to say that we don't want people who are doing things that don't fit the perfect definition per se. It's if you create a business that just does something, and even if you're not shaking up a system, that's good too. It's business with a purpose, right? You have a purpose, you're helping people, you're protecting the environment, and even charities and things like that. They play a role too, but it is a very different role. And I'll just give a quick explanation of why. They're addressing an immediate need. So if there's poverty in a country, somebody runs a charity, they're going to say, here's some food, here's some money, we're going to alleviate pressure from that problem. But since they're not changing the actual root cause of the problem, the systemic problem, then the problem is still going to exist. It's not going to go away until whatever's making it in the first place is changed, whether it's policies, cultural beliefs, whatever it is, has to change. So they play a role in giving immediate alleviation to those pressures, but they're not actually changing the duration and sustainable like outcomes of it until they change the root cause. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. It's like a band-aid versus putting a band-aid on
Yes.
versus actually fixing the problem.
Right. Instead of doing the surgery, you're just putting a band-aid on it and saying you're okay for the next 48 hours.
Yeah, kicking the can down the road and all that. So
Y-
So yeah,
Yeah.
so you have all these different guests and things, and so the next thing that I need a little clearing up on is so you keep using this term like digital magazine. Is that something new, or like when I picture like a digital magazine, I'm thinking like, is it like a PDF, or I'm looking on the site and I'm
Oh,
just seeing like podcast interviews. What's a digital magazine as opposed to like a newsletter or a podcast or something like that?
yeah, the digital magazine's great. It's been around for a little while, but it's just picking up steam, similar to how podcasts kind of like picked up, died out, and now they're like picking up again. And they're really powerful form. It's a powerful medium for conveying messages and education because they give a new layer of depth to the learning experience, and that means we have interactivity now. So it's an app. The app is in Google Store, it's in Google Play Store, it's in iTunes. So you download the app, you get automatic updates. You don't have to worry about when it's coming out next or coming to your door or anything like that. It's right there on any device that you want. So anytime, anywhere. And now you have interactive video. We have exclusive interviews that you play right in the magazine, or you have interactive infographics. So that layer of interactivity, you know what they say, like a video is worth, I don't know, what was it, the number 18 million words or 1.8 million words or something like that. So you could just see that kind of interactivity and inclusion of those types of things adds a whole new layer or dimension of education.
Okay, so as opposed to just like you said, like as opposed to just putting out some videos or having a blog or having a podcast, the app has everything on it, and so that way someone can listen to your podcast and also branch out onto if you had like a PDF document, or branch out into if you had some kind of other videos. Is that right?
Well, right. So everything would be baked into it. And the nice thing about the magazine app is that we're creating a premium experience where we're curating specifics. Like think of the magazine as a story from head to toe, right? And you're going to get the most important pieces of information, whether it's in article form or it's going to be in a video that supports that article. Or you're going to have an infographic to demonstrate certain statistics or tips around marketing expertise and things like that. So you're not surfing through someone's website looking for all these different things and trying to find the right pieces. We craft a story that plays throughout the magazine, and we give you the essential pieces of information, and we're connecting you directly with a lot of powerful insights from these social entrepreneurs and business entrepreneurs. For example, our next issue coming out in just a week or so is with Neil Patel. So we do talk to business entrepreneurs as well, because no matter what kind of an entrepreneur you are, you need to understand your marketing as well.
Right, and I appreciate like any kind of like whatever it is, if it's a podcast show or any kind of like a recurring show like that. I always appreciate having those different angles and those different types of people. And it's like if it was the same kind of person week in and week out or month in and month out, then
Yeah.
I would just kind of get bored. So and as I'm going through an episode, it would be pretty interesting to be able to kind of, I don't know, like play with my brain more or have different parts of my brain active more because I could, like you said, like check out an infographic or read some of it or listen to some of it as opposed to just the same old format all the time.
Well, right. And I've noticed that with some magazines, you'll go through just article, article, article. So we try to really create an experience that's going to be engaging, digestible, the right amount of, detailed, like heavy article content versus, the media content or just really snackable infographic type content. So we really just try to layer that in the right amount so it keeps people engaged throughout the experience. And if you go through the magazine head to toe, that should give you a really holistic experience on a particular theme.
Cool. And then I'm looking at the details of this app, and I noticed that you're able to plug it into a revenue model. You're able to plug it into some kind of a monthly fee, as opposed to a lot of podcasts where it's free or you have to rely on
Right.
sponsors and things. So I mean, what was the thought process behind that of having this magazine charge a monthly fee?
Well, so the idea is, well, we need to sustain ourselves as a business. We can't keep designing magazines or building websites that deliver this type of information and all those things unless we have some kind of revenue model. So this was our starting point for the brand. The brand is Change Creator, and one of the initiatives is the magazine. The other initiative is the podcast, and the pay model right now is for the magazine. So that's going to be a reoccurring model, which is always nice. Just like you see, I feel like everywhere I turn right now, it's constantly like I have to pay a monthly subscription or yearly or
For
something.
everything, yeah.
I got a darn list that goes on, but I totally get it. And we keep it very affordable. I mean, you can go out to lunch to New York, or you can get 1 year of really premium content with our magazine, right? $19.99 for a year or $1.99 a month. It just doesn't get much cheaper for the value that we're offering. So we do need to make money in order to keep it alive. And the idea is that you're paying for a premium product. I mean, we put a lot of time and energy into making sure we have really impactful instruction. We want things to be instructional, but also inspirational. Get ideas. How are other people tackling these big global issues that you feel like maybe you're too small to address, but people are doing it? And how are they doing it? What are the ideas? And how are they doing their marketing? And you get those insights, and we really try to pry into that stuff so that when you're reading it, your light bulb just keeps going off. Like, oh yeah, that's helpful. I need that, and you can start applying it and changing the way that you're doing things to improve and scale your business.
Awesome, and I think that's a pretty good message there. So, how have you come into any kind of difficulties as far as differentiating the magazine or as far as charging money? And I mean, the reason I ask that is because like for example, like Malika has her cause and there are things like that,
Yeah.
um, and so I'm sure that she's appeared on other types of radio shows and
Oh
podcasts and
yeah.
things like that. So a lot of these people, their information is available elsewhere. But and then you mentioned that you have the interactive stuff and the infographics, but that's kind of hard. It's kind of hard for me to want it if I haven't seen it. So have you come across any difficulty with that in sort of justifying the paid component of the magazine?
We're only releasing our fifth issue, and I'd say earlier on, yes, it is difficult, and you have to realize that part of it is earning trust. How do you build your credibility that, hey guys, you can trust our information? Like I know you don't know who we are, and that I think is the biggest hurdle. So the differentiation I don't find difficult because it's all about what questions are you asking? What angle are you going after? Do you understand the other types of interviews that have taken place? And I always, vet that kind of stuff. But I think that it really is about earning people's trust and establishing yourself. So if you're going to start a digital magazine, you have to realize you're probably going to have to be able to analyze your expenses up front and know what it takes to get through the first year. And part of getting through that first year is trying to establish some larger names that are going to be recognized so that people start taking your magazine seriously. And so that's the road we're going down right now. Our sales are going up, up, and up, but that's part of our strategy in a sense of, we're going to start with really appealing, businesses and people like Jake Orak that we talked about and stuff like that. But they're not globally famous, but they have a great story. They have lots of information and instruction to share. And then as we keep getting the next cover, the next cover, the next cover, we'll keep building it up, building it up. Now we have Neil Patel. Then we're talking to Ariana Huffington and Tony Robbins and things like that. So as that happens, then over time you start building the trust that you do have the right content and that you're professional and trustworthy and all those things. So as you just got to realize it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
That makes sense, and yeah, and those are some amazing guests it sounds like you have coming up, and it's like yeah, as you get more and more established and you get more and more of a trust in the audience, you get higher and higher profile guests, and so like at the beginning of our talk here, you talked about your big revelation when you were traveling and you wanted to make this
Sure.
magazine and stuff like that, and so what's the social change component of this magazine? I mean, does it stop at just the fact that it's getting the word out and helping out these other people, or is there something more to it as far as the social entrepreneur aspect of this specific business?
So there's a couple things. Let's see if I can lay them all out real quick. One, everything we do, the initial reason for this magazine is I said to myself, okay, so maybe I'm not exactly by definition a social entrepreneur like I want it to be, but what I can do is contribute to the development of many social entrepreneurs because I think we need more people to shift and transition their approach to business in this direction. This will be good for everybody, right? And then the other part of it is that the magazine itself, every subscription that we sell, we give 10% to Charity Water. So we also support a cause. And you have to also realize that people like Entrepreneur Magazine, Fast Company, they're all great magazines, and they're focused on business entrepreneurship. And so with that, they are making it very cool. They have like a good vibrant feel to it, and they make it cool to be a business entrepreneur. And what I saw missing, and we are the only app, the only social entrepreneurship magazine app that's out there. And I wanted to breathe new life into the category because it's very academic right now. And there's a lot of good information, but it's like I said, it's very academic. So we wanted to say, let's make a magazine that is vibrant, it's young, it's edgy, and make social entrepreneurship cool, just like Inc. and Fast Company is doing for business entrepreneurship. So those are the three components I think that we're addressing is creating more social entrepreneurs because it's important that we approach business that way. Breathing new life into the category to make it more attractive. And then three, supporting a very important cause as part of our revenue model.
Awesome. And the thing I kept hearing from you when you were explaining that is just that it's important to have to make things cool, especially in this day and age, especially where like having a presence on Facebook is important, and I think that a lot of I think that I at least ran into that when trying to get things to go viral or
Yeah.
pick up socially or even just getting some dang Facebook likes. It's really hard for someone to like a Facebook page about a WordPress plugin or about a website or something, or even in a lot of ways, it's hard to get someone to like a page about like Tony Robbins because it's like, oh, you're such a dork, right? You're learn about how to jump in the air and flap your arms and stuff like that. But then yeah, but there's definitely something to this where, but then it, like Inc. and Entrepreneur, it's like they're almost there, right? They're almost to the point where like you'd be proud to like it the same way you'd like it the same way as like your favorite like musician or something like that. And I think that
Right.
that's kind of what I'm seeing is, and it's almost like I mean, it's almost like appealing more to the millennials or the future or things like that. And I mean, and I'm sure that it appeals to the the older crowd too. But just some kind of that's what's going through my head as you're explaining that is that just to get more of that support or to get more people to kind of check in like more of it in like a friendly type of way as opposed to just academic. I'm going to read the latest facts and figures. So it sounds like that's kind of what you're
Yeah.
going for is to make it less like school or make it less like study and make it more of just having fun kind of thing, but also getting all these things accomplished as well.
Well, right. And obviously the ultimate goal is let's forget the term social entrepreneur. And when we just talk about entrepreneurship, it should be that you are approaching the business. That's the standard. You approach it with the purpose of social or environmental change. You are making a difference. You can look at it this way. Instead of growing up and the kids saying, I want to be when I grow up, it's more what problem do you want to solve when you grow up? That's the approach. And there's a lot going on in the world. All these problems, as depressing as they can be, they're opportunities for change. So you have to look at them. And whether it's an issue that just makes you angry and you want to tackle it, or you travel and you have an aha moment, whatever it is, there's a lot of things that we need. And we all have different experience and we all have different expertise. So we can contribute to different problems. And I think everybody is a student, everybody is a teacher. So we can play a role. You can teach me something, I can teach you something. And that this is my niche. This is what I want to focus on because I'm passionate about it. I love to see the transition towards social entrepreneurship. I think it's a natural evolutionary process. As more technology is creating transparency, then people's empathy is reaching farther and farther and farther as they see what's going on around the world. So naturally, more people, especially the younger generations, as you could see from Nielsen and Pew data, they want to have work that is meaningful. They want to make a difference. But like I said, it's very difficult to figure out, well, what's the path to do that? How do I do that? And that's where we come into play. And that's what we want to do is help that transition.
Nice. So if someone was looking to make that transition, like, as we're kind of you're winding this call down here. If
Yeah.
someone was in the situation that you were in when you were, in Costa Rica and you were kind of, traveling and deep in thought and thinking, okay,
Yeah.
like I need to change course. What does it all mean? If someone was looking to do even just a little social entrepreneurship, like not quite totally make the whole shift, but dip their toe in a little bit, like what's the low hanging fruit? What's the first step for someone to move a little bit into social entrepreneurship?
I think the first thing you want to do is ask yourself why you want to do this. And then I'll add the second thing is you got to take self inventory. What are your values? And you really got to start taking an assessment of yourself. And there are some interesting processes. There's a free guide that we offer, a startup guide. It goes through those processes to discover your niche. And part of discovering it is what makes sense for me, like where is like what kind of business aligns to my values and who I am. And so you can go through some exercises that really, once you put it on paper, everyone thinks they know this stuff in their head, but once you put it on paper, you really start seeing things differently. And you realize it's actually kind of difficult to answer some of these questions. But once you do it, you could start seeing, all right, what, it's really going to make sense for me. I feel like this is the right direction. You could start narrowing it down. So I think you want to understand why you want to do it. And then you got to start taking a self-inventory to find out what's most important to you and your values and understanding your skill sets that you can apply and all that kind of stuff. Then you can come up with a unique idea on how to approach it. There's an interesting one that, Ann Miltenberg, who I interviewed with branding, she did with a girl that was a surfer, and the way they broke her like persona down and how she used her surfing experience to tackle a big problem. And it's a very interesting story. And unfortunately, I don't remember all the details because it was a while ago, but it was the same idea of just understand who you are, what's important to you, and start thinking about your skill sets and see how you can apply them to a problem that's important to you.
That makes a lot of sense. So everyone's on their own path, and everyone has to, by taking that inventory, figure out like what Lego blocks assemble and things like that, so that your skills match up with your passion and what you want and your meaning and all that good stuff.
And that's exactly it. And that's what more and more people are doing today is, that everyone is realizing with the power of the internet and all that stuff, they can be their own boss and they would probably like to do that. And, but they don't want to just make money. I mean, that's important in our economy, of course, but they want to do something meaningful that makes them feel good and fulfilled. So to get that alignment, yeah, really important to take that self-assessment. And that's the starting point because we're all unique. We all have unique skills and you got to just start really getting clear on what those are. Like if someone came to you, has anyone ever come to you and asked you for advice or anything like that? Because that might be a hint at what people see you as an expert in or helpful. Like I've had people tell me, Adam, you missed your calling on 3 occasions in my life to be a motivational speaker. And that was a big consideration for me too. Like, maybe I should be doing something like that. But those are cues and tips to help you along the way.
Nice. And then there's always that cliche, right? That we're all on the same course for death, and it doesn't matter how much money you make, you're gonna have the same size coffin at the end. And it seems like every couple of days there's always like, oh, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are doing this thing, or Elon Musk is doing this thing to
Yeah.
try to get us to Mars, or Facebook is putting drones in Africa to have internet, and it's like. I kept looking at that thinking, well, that's really cool, but that's like way out of my league. But it would, I always, that thought always comes in my mind that like, there's like such a cool thing that people are doing, and it would be nice if there was something on like a smaller scale doing it. It sounds like your Change Creator magazine is helping people see that and helping the people who are already doing it to get the word out and to have their cause have more of a reach. I think it's a really cool
Yeah.
thing that you're doing here. So could you tell everyone where people should go for that free guide and to check out the magazine and anything else you want to share with them?
Yeah, sure, sure. Just stop by www.changecreatormag.com. We got a couple free guides there. If you're already doing your business, you got a Facebook guide to help you with your marketing. And then we have the Social Entrepreneur Startup Guide, which are really, even if you already have your business, there's some helpful steps in there. And just really, it's everything we did to start and build the foundation of our brand. And those are based on learnings from all the interviews we've done and other things that other experts that we've spoken to. So you can discover your niche and start building your business foundation. Because if you don't do those steps right, I'm telling you, you're going to waste years of time and money, your most valuable resources, because you're going to be playing darts without a dartboard. So you really got to take the right steps from the beginning to make sure you're going in the right direction with all your time and energy. So yeah, you could stop by there, and then of course, check out the magazine. That is like your ride along to success. We really dive into addressing problems and connecting you with those insights from successful social entrepreneurs, and hopefully that is something that will help you scale your business up and keep on growing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty powerful. I think that it will help a lot of people. So everyone who's listening, if you're at the point where you're like, okay, well, what does it all mean? What's my legacy or whatever, or
Yep.
what change am I gonna make or anything like that? Then I think that changecreatormag.com is the perfect place where everyone should go right now. If you're on the website, click it. If you're in the car driving, listening, pull over and write down changecreatormag.com. So thanks so much, Mr. Adam, for coming on the show and blowing my
Yeah,
mind and opening up a lot of possibilities on what people can do as far as the big picture and things like that.
it was my pleasure. I appreciate you having me. It's great.
This is Robert Plank. Subscribe to the show at robertplank.com/iTunes.